Hello, and welcome to Fintech Surge Podcast, creating a wealth of opportunities through fintech innovations in the Middle East for the Middle East. Powered by Fintech Surge, the region's leading fintech festival, hosted by Dubai World Trade Center alongside GITEX Global. Hi, I'm excited to be joined today by Dr. Chen from New York University. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Chen.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
So Dr. Chen is actually a tenured associate professor and Andre Meyer fellow at Stern School of Business at New York University, and is also an affiliated professor at Computer Science and Center for Data Science. Dr. Chen's main research field is machine learning and complex data analytics, and his application in e-commerce and fintech. Has a pretty impressive resume that you have there, Dr. Chen.
Thank you.
So what I always start off with is the simple question, and it's very interesting that we get a lot of different answers for this. But what does fintech mean to you?
Thank you, Stephen, for the invitation. I think it's a very exciting opportunity for me to join this podcast. I think fintech means a very exciting emerging area to me, both from research and from business, because it's really the field that combines modern technologies such as AI, artificial intelligence, and the blockchain with finance. It's a track, it's very fascinating to me because actually, as you introduced, I hold my PhD in machine learning and AI. Then I joined NYU Stern School of Business as a professor. As you know, Stern is famous for its finance. So fintech is a very interesting area for me as it combines both the technology part and the finance part. And also nowadays, it has a wide range of applications such as payment, robo-advising, eKYC, crowdfunding, lending, DeFi, digital banking, personalized insurance, and also AI for fraud and security. This list can go on and on.
That's amazing. And I mean, definitely that's a new take on fintech. Obviously, we have a lot of conversations with, payment providers, with, even people that can help with salaries and these sort of things, credit lenders. But, thinking about AI and its application in fintech is definitely a new spin that we're very happy to have on the show. And so to kind of set the groundwork for the discussion, could you tell us a little bit more about, what is AI and machine learning, and what are the advancements that we've seen in the last few years when it comes to AI and machine learning?
Yeah, it's great. So basically AI is, you can consider them as a set of technologies that enable computers to perceive, learn, reason, and also help people make decision-making to solve some complex problems. But really, I feel like nowadays AI becomes a buzzword, especially in the past few years. So practically any computer program that can automatically do something, people just call it AI. But from a more professional perspective, we separate AI into two categories. One is called ANI, which is called artificial narrow intelligence, which means the AI agent has no self-awareness and kind of make the reasoning as a human being. But it can do certain tasks if you give them very clear instruction. For example, image classification, playing chess, or even self-driving car. In the long term, we are thinking if we can achieve this so-called AGI in someday, which means artificial general intelligence, the AI has this self-awareness and can make real reasoning for the unseen problems. I don't know if you know that there is a kind of a debate online for NLP system. Actually, it's a Google engineer, Blake, open his laptop and have some conversation with, basically a chatbot generator called Lambda. And he had a very long conversation. And there is an argument on the internet whether this bot generator really has the, self-awareness and can make the real reasoning. So AI contains many categories, but certainly machine learning is really the foundation of AI. When we talk about machine learning, it has a wide range of applications. Basically, you can using the machine learning to do the prediction and classification. For example, time series prediction, so on and so forth. But what is most exciting advancement in the AI in the past, 10 years is really about deep learning. Starting from the collection of a huge image data set called ImageNet, and people propose this so-called AlexNet kind of a neural network framework based on the convolution neural network. and it has achieved a great accuracy in the image classification. And then we have like new like NLP system, the question answering system, speech system, and also like some AI system can make some actions, make the decision making. For example, AlphaGo for playing the Go. So deep learning will be, I think, will be the one of the most exciting achievements of the AI in the past 10 years. And beyond that, I think another very interesting thing in the AI is that the AI becomes, kind of prevailing, and this kind of automation of some task into AI becomes easier and easier as the entrance bar becomes lower. So there is a very popular word in the AI called auto ML, which means like automated machine learning. It's very easy to deploy, and you can use some cloud services like Amazon AWS or like Google Cloud or Microsoft, and to deploy like your auto machine learning very quickly, so that whenever you have some prediction classification task, NLP task, you can readily using this kind of a cloud tools to deploy your AI system, so that many small business vendors, especially those in fintech, can readily have this kind of the services.
That's amazing.
I'm not sure if I answer your questions.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a great answer to it. So not only are machines capable of learning, but now you can automate that machine learning as well.
Yeah, exactly.
That's amazing. And so, obviously, we come from the fintech surge, and we're looking to explore, what is the latest technology and what is the future of financial technologies. And it really seems like AI is the answer to that. So how is AI being applied to fintech today? And how do you believe that is going to, shape the future of fintech tomorrow?
Yeah, I think AI has already been kind of applied to fintech nowadays. I give you some examples. Like starting even from like, I would say like, 10, 20 years ago, the people doing like quant trading or, already use a lot of like machine learning techniques to do the prediction, for example, of the stock price. And robot advising is kind of becoming more and more popular these days, from the very low, like, kind of advising fees. They use AI to automatically construct a portfolio. But in addition to that, for example, like AI helped the fintech in the sense of like, for example, security. You can use like say graph neural network, which is very popular in deep learning nowadays, for the financial risk analysis. And you can use like AI to detect the personal level credit card fraud, corporate default risk, accounting fraud detection. So this kind of things. And also, like as I mentioned, like credit qualification is one of the very important application of AI. So using AI can automatically make the prediction with the likelihood that a person or a small corporate will default. And indeed, as you can see, like for example, more than 77% of people using credit card, and AI can better evaluate candidates' qualification and make an accurate like interest on the loans, even without any credit history. There are many companies in this field, like I just name a few, like there's Zest AI, like Ether AI platform, which already have like more than I think 100 million users, collaborating with quite a few like credit card company. There's another company called Underwrite.ai, which is using AI to evaluate the small business loans applicants. And in addition to like the fraud and the credit qualification, I think another very interesting and also exciting area for AI in the fintech is about personalized finance. The personalized insurance. So as you know, like AI, the biggest power of AI is to do the personalization, because it's collected a very detailed level of personal information, and it can use this information to give accurate, kind of, for example, say the interest, like the loan interest. And in terms of insurance, like there are many kind of applications of using AI for this called usage-based insurance. I just give an example. There's a company called Root, which instead of like charging you a fixed amount of insurance for your car, it has some sensors to install on your car and detect your like driving behavior. And based on your driving behavior, very detailed analysis of your driving behavior, it decides, the premium of the insurance. I think like personalized insurance will become more and more popular, and there's certainly a big area of application of AI to fintech.
That's great. And honestly, you're really touching on a lot of subjects that AI can, can have applications to that even I never really thought of too much. I mean, we think of wealth tech, and it's very common that when people think about AI and wealth tech, we think about automated advisors, right? Or kind of
Mm.
robo advisors, as we call them. And I think some of the concerns, and it's been addressed on a previous podcast before with the robo advisors, is if you have let's say the artificial intelligence advising people on their portfolios, would would they not continue to just give the same advice? If this is great advice, would you not see everybody getting the same advice, and in which case the investment would actually not be as valuable as it could have been?
I think it's a very good question. So basically, as you can see nowadays, the people still have like a very diversified portfolio because you are entering a lot of like your personal information to the robot advising. So for example, your risk, kind of tolerance, your age, like, and your like assets and what is your goal. I think it varies from person to person, family to family. And based on this kind of information, the robot advising can give suggestions based on your own like personal profile. And in the future, like in the future, if this robot advising can have access, let's say for example, to all of your loans, your credit card information, it's even do not need your help to entering like your personal information. It can just extract all your information. Of course, we need to under very strict privacy regulation. But if they can like access all this information, I think it can make very personalized kind of advising like strategy and give like like different constructions of portfolio. And they may also give you the choice that you can like make a choice on like they give you several different choices and you can make one from them, or like it's can with like the NLP, the natural language processing, the robot advisor even can just behave like a real advisor to chat with you. Based on your profile, I see probably you want this and this kind of components in your portfolio. Do you agree with that? Or if you want to adjust like the percentage, so you can have like a real natural conversation with the real robot, like with the robot advising, and this will make your experience much better. And certainly, based on the personal conversation, the portfolio will also be different from one person to another.
That's great. And one thing that you keep saying, and I think that is kind of a new sort of subject when it comes to AI, is the personalization. So I think that a lot of times when we think of AI, we just think of a big machine somewhere, kind of just gathering a bunch of information, and sort of making its own decisions. But this is really kind of bringing it back to the consumer itself, right? I mean, now we're
Exactly.
talking about, like you said, personalization of robo advisory, where it's not just going to give the best advice for trading stocks and bonds, but it's going to give the best advice for you based on how you behave, based on his understandings of a personality type. Even more so than you might know. Maybe somebody might be young, in which case a lot of advisors would say, "Oh, whenever you're young, now's the time to invest more aggressively and to bid into higher risk, higher reward sort of investment vehicles. Or as you're older, you might want to kind of tone that down and be a little bit more conservative." Whereas a robo advisor would be able to say, well, this person might be, let's say, 20, but based on their behaviors, I could see that they still might be more risk adverse than other 20-year-olds, and I'm going to go
Exactly.
ahead and make
Based
sure
on
make
their
sure
purchasing behavior, their loans, their like even like from their like kind of a historical investment, like even they get the information from their family. They can, as you mentioned, they can make very personalized decisions in that even you are very young, but that probably provide you like a more conservative kind of suggestions.
exactly. And another thing you touched on was insure tech as well. Basically artificially intelligence personalized insurance. So I think that one of the big fallacies that insurance has, which you might be able to call it a fallacy or you might be able to call it objective, is they basically group people into demographics based on their age, a lot of times their gender, their behavior patterns, especially when it comes to health insurance. Are you athletic? Are you in shape? Are you overweight? Do you smoke? So there's a lot of times where you can say, okay, well, all insurances are doing is just going based on statistics, but then again, they're also imposing unfair biases on people that may have things kind of outside their control. Whereas, artificial intelligence actually may be able to say, sure, this person may have these sort of traits on paper, but actually we don't have to charge them so much for insurance because what I can tell is I don't think that they're a huge risk for the insurance company.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's amazing. And so I think a lot of this comes down to, one thing that we've really been kind of pushing towards in universities is financial literacy. And I think especially in the US, we've kind of been saying, do schools really prepare us for the real world in terms of, do we even know how to apply for a loan? Do we know how to stay out of debt? Do you know how to manage finances? It's not really a curriculum that's taught in high schools, and it's seldomly taught in universities as well. But being, a highly, decorated professor at, a very prestigious university, New York University, are you seeing fintech being taught as a curriculum in universities, or is it more of, finances, a major, and then technology is the major, but is fintech itself actually a curriculum in universities?
Yeah, it's a very good question. From my very personal experience, I think the answer will be yes and no. There are some fintech courses offered, but still, like, they are mostly in finance. In other words, I think they are emphasized a little bit more on the finance, but maybe a slightly less on the technology side. So it's, in my perspective, it's really an interdisciplinary field, so that involves both, technology part and the finance part. So, as the fintech becomes more and more important, I can envision in the future there will be some, kind of a joint degree programs between, let's say, computer science and finance. But I still think it takes some time. And also, I am seeing that there is a trend, like more and more fintech center having established. For example, NYU, New York University, have this Fubon Center, which is dedicated to fintech. But I will envision that there will be more and more centers established in this space in the next 10 years. It's really an emerging and very exciting field.
That's great, and I think that definitely as we realize that fintech, it really does touch us as consumers. It's not, kind of just for the institutions or for the banks or for the insurance companies. It actually is things that affects everyday life. Everybody now pays with their phone. Everybody now taps their credit card to pay. So it really does affect all of us. And I think that as that makes our lives more convenient, more students will be pushing towards these sort of curriculums.
Yeah.
Kind of going a little bit onto a different topic. One thing that we kind of tend to save the blockchain conversations for our blockchain audiences, but I think that you would be actually the best person to have a conversation with. I kind of want to talk a little bit more about decentralized finance, or as a lot of people say, DeFi. Could you tell us a little bit more about what that means and how it applies to fintech?
Oh yeah, that's a great topic, guys. I've been working on AI for many years, but now I'm kind of also exploring the space of this blockchain technology and decentralized finance. I think this is really something will become super important in the next 10, 15 years. So in a short words, decentralized finance is an emerging financial technology that is based on the blockchain technology and secure distributed ledgers. So, but as I give you some examples, as compared to the traditional, what we call the CeFi, like centralized finance, you hold your money on your own kind of a ledger, a distributed ledger on the internet in a secure digital wallet. So you have full control over your money. And you can transfer your funds like in seconds and 24 hours a day in 7 days. And basically anyone with the internet connection can use the decentralized finance without any pre-approval. For example, in the decentralized finance, there should be no barriers to entering the field. And also, it should be fully transparent, eliminating the fees like banks and other financial companies charge for their services. So this is kind of a comparison between the DeFi, decentralized finance, with the CeFi. I can give you some very concrete applications so you can understand a little bit better. So for example, you can use the decentralized finance for the international payment. And it's what, happens in 1 second. and the fee is very stable. Like as compared to like a different central banks, they may charge different fees, on the transaction on the like a DeFi for the international payment is completely transparent. And there is something called stable coins, which pegged to like say the US dollar in the decentralized finance, and it can be used for like kind of inflation protection. And the people using like decentralized finance to swap different like tokens or cryptocurrencies. So it's more like a decentralized exchange. And you can have like lending and borrowing kind of things on the DeFi. And the most exciting, like kind of application, one of the most exciting applications on DeFi is what we call flash loans, which means like you loan the money, you do some transaction and you pay it back. And all the things will just happen like, like in 1 second. And if you are like loan the things and you want to do something, but this thing failed, it's automatically retreat, kind of going back to the original starting position. So this kind of, kind of all of their very new and exciting applications of like decentralized finance.
Absolutely, and I think that we see that decentralized finance is really taking the world by storm, and it's a huge hot topic of conversation, and that's something we're going to explore a lot in the Fintech Surge event that we're having at the Dubai World Trade Center in October, and we'll probably touch a lot more on that actually at the Future Blockchain Summit, which is co-located with the same event. And it kind of raises the question that is decentralized finance the future of fintech, or will it always just be an alternative solution? So will we still use centralized finance and decentralized finance, or will it eventually kind of take over as the main source of finance?
I think it's a very good question, and it's also a tough question. I have to say it's a little bit too early to tell, but very personally, I do not think like a DeFi will replace like centralized finance. It can serve as a very good complement for many applications. Let's give you some examples. For example, in a game, you need to do a lot of swaps of different small tokens, and for a relatively small amount. And in this case, probably CeFi will not be a kind of a good app, like a good tool. But on the other hand, decentralized finance fits this scenario, like kind of the best. And also in the regions, like under development without any kind of a mature financial or banking system, and DeFi could be a choice for exchange, for lending, for borrowing, so it can be a very good complement for the centralized finance. But I won't see like DeFi will completely take over the place of CeFi.
Yeah, that makes sense. And if DeFi does not replace CeFi, does that propose a risk to decentralized finance? If it is it always going to be able to succeed if it doesn't actually take over as the main way of paying for things?
Yeah, I think there is a lot of issues for DeFi, and I still think to solving this issue, we really need the new development of technology. So DeFi is like even heavily rely as compared to CeFi, it's rely more on like the technology advancement. So some potential problem of DeFi, for example, the robustness. DeFi is really vulnerable for many kind of different attacks. For example, we have a sandwich attack. We have all kinds of like arbitrage risk. For example, MEV arbitrage, and also DeFi has like kind of a for example, for the stable coin, as you probably heard about, is the case of Luna. The collapse of Luna also shows that kind of a vulnerability of like a stable coin on the DeFi world. So we also need like like a more like carefully designed regulation for the DeFi.
Absolutely.
So with the regulation and advancement of technology, and I think in the next, I would say 5 years, will make DeFi like well-rounded and more robust for the public needs.
Yeah, and I think that as with any sort of disruptive technology, there's always going to be growing pains. There's always going to be a need for it to prove itself, and we don't like to talk about the negatives of technology too much because, like we said, there's always going to be some sort of bugs and kinks that need to be worked out. And unfortunately, with Luna, as you mentioned, it did not work out in their case. But definitely, we always encourage understanding and adapting to the technology, so we don't just dismiss it as soon as it has its first problem, but we adapt and we learn and optimize, so that way good technology can prosper.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of anything with fintech, so with AI, with machine learning, with decentralized finance, are there any countries or regions that you think are really doing a great job of adapting to this new technology?
Oh, that's a very good question. I think first of all, I personally feel like I'm very excited about this fintech surge and also the blockchain, the future blockchain summit, because I think UAE is really doing great. In this field, I give you some statistics. Like for example, the fintech sector in the Middle East is growing so rapidly. The compound annual growth is more than like 30%. So I do some a little bit homework. In 2017, it's only around like 30 fintech company. That year it's only raised about like 80 million US dollars in venture capital. But in 2022, there are more than 800 fintech companies and raising like more than 2 billion, kind of a VC fund. I think there's a lot of good reasons for that, especially for the Middle East part. First of all, like there's, the population are kind of young, and nearly maybe half of the population is around, below like 25 or 30 years old. And also like the Middle East area now pay a lot of attention for the tech innovation. There are many new schools, university established. So believe it or not, there is a called Zayed University of Artificial Intelligence, like university center, like focus on artificial intelligence. And the president actually is one of my professors at CMU when I studied for the PhD degree. So I see all this kind of a new technology innovation and education opportunities. And finally, there are a lot of policy support. For example, there's 2 leading UAE financial free zones like Abu Dhabi Global Market and Dubai International Financial Center. So they are really the flagship examples of the UAE's fintech success. So I think certainly UAE will be one of the the country who take the big stride in the fintech. There are some other countries like Singapore, another country in the South Asia, like some maybe with more and more technology, some country in Africa will also achieve like great success in the fintech. Yeah, so it's very exciting, see all this kind of a development and also the rapid growth.
That's great, and it's really exciting to see that we're even developing a reputation over there in the U.S. Where you're teaching school. UAE really is genuinely becoming the fintech and the crypto hub of the Middle East for sure. Like you said that the UAE actually has the majority of all fintechs in the region are in the UAE itself, and so really excited to see the innovations that are coming to this country specifically and the Middle East in general. But we're very proud of the UAE being the home of all of these fintech organizations. And so, Dr. Chen, I really wanted to thank you for coming on. But lastly, I really want to ask. I know that you're going to be coming to the Fintech Surge Festival in October at the Dubai World Trade Center, and you're actually doing a workshop. Are you not?
Yes, I'm very looking forward to coming to the Fintech Surge in October and doing the workshop here to interact with the people, like in the UAE and also the Middle East, and also the people coming from all over the world about like the advancement of fintech. That's really a great opportunity, and I think it's a critically important topic, and it's the right timing because pandemic already changed many consumers' behavior for the interaction with like financial tools, and also like this, we are almost at the end of hopefully we are at the end of the pandemic, and the people resume traveling. So it's a fantastic like timing for doing this workshop and the fintech surge at Dubai in October.
Great, and can you tell the audience a little bit about what they expect to learn at the workshop?
Yeah. Thank you so much for bringing this up. I think there's a vast like kind of a different topics. It's a very hard decision. So probably as a university professor, I would focus a little bit more on the technology side because I think the people get so many access to like the finance part. Like you can listen to the podcast, you can see the news. But I will be a little bit focused on the technology part. I would especially focus on Web3. I would describe a little bit about Web3. I will give an overview of blockchain technology, and also I would dig down to the decentralized finance talking about different applications and talk of like decentralized finance and technology behind them. And if time permits, I can also bring some use case of DeFi and maybe AI, and also have like roundtable discussion with the participants.
Amazing, amazing, and I'm sure that the audience is really going to look forward to kind of the insights that you're going to be offering at the FinTech Surge in Dubai. And we're really looking forward to seeing you, Dr. Chen. I know that we're in July right now, but October is right around the corner. So I look forward to seeing you in Dubai, October 10th through the 13th at Dubai World Trade Center for FinTech Surge.
Thank you so much, Stephen, for this interview. I extremely appreciate your efforts.
Great. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you soon, Dr. Chen.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Subscribe for all the latest updates on FinTech in the Middle East and join the conversation over on our social channels. We look forward to seeing you at FinTech Surge in the Dubai World Trade Center from October 10th to October 13th. I'm Stephen Besse, and this has been the FinTech Surge podcast, creating a wealth of opportunities.